Welcome to This Explainer, Focus Learners. Today we are unpacking a truly incredible, highly professional, step-by-step blueprint designed to take your abstract pie-in-the-sky dreams and turn them into concrete reality. Seriously, if you've ever felt like your goals are just kind of hovering out of reach, or you're simply looking for a foolproof, structured methodology to totally accelerate your personal and professional growth, well, you are exactly where you need to be. Together, we're going to construct your very own achievement factory.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to start by asking yourself this exact question. Really think about it. What would you do if you knew absolutely 100% that you could not fail? We constantly limit our desires by stressing over our current circumstances, right? We look at our bank accounts or we let our fears take the wheel. But to live a truly extraordinary life, you have to temporarily wipe those limits completely off the board. Setting this tone of boundless, limitless thinking is the absolute mandatory first step before we lay a single brick in our factory.
To build all this out, we're drawing from an amazing blueprint, Andrii Sedniev's book, The Achievement Factory. We've actually gone through and read the entire book to create this comprehensive professional summary for you. It provides a proven, industrial-grade methodology for achieving success. So we're not just talking about vague, feel-good motivation here. We're talking about actually engineering your life through a reliable, repeatable system. Think of our explainer today as an interconnected assembly line. Here is the agenda we're processing. First, the formula for happiness. Second, designing your dream list. Third, engineering achievable goals. Fourth, the power of visualization. Fifth, taking massive directed action. And finally, embracing failure and persistence. Every single stage processes the raw material from the stage right before it. Let's fire up the line. Section 1. The Formula for Happiness. Redefining the ultimate goal. So, before we can actually build our factory, we really have to understand what it's designed to produce. Most people, they think they're building a factory to pump out money, or status, or fancy objects. But the true foundation of all human achievement is the pursuit of happiness. And here's the kicker. Happiness isn't a final destination. It's not a giant pile of cash or a perfect mansion. According to Jason's rule from the text, happiness is the emotion of progress towards a desirable goal. From a neurological standpoint, every time you experience a tiny victory, your brain's reward system just hits you with dopamine. It's exactly why kids get so addicted to video games. They're getting continuous hits of progress. We need to engineer our actual lives to deliver those continuous dopamine hits through real-world progress.
Section 2. Designing your dream list. Generating raw material.
A factory cannot run without raw material, right? Now that we know progress is the ultimate product, we have to feed the assembly line with your deepest, most authentic desires. The source material suggests a mandatory exercise here, writing down a minimum of 100 dreams. Now you might rattle off the first 20 super easily, a new car, a big promotion, a trip to Hawaii. But as you push toward 100, you literally force your subconscious to dig deep. And get this. Studies from Dominican University show that simply writing down your goals dramatically boosts your probability of achieving them. It takes you from a 43% chance of success all the way up to 76% when you combine it with an action plan. That is a massive jump.
Now, to make sure you actually hit that number 100, you've got to balance your raw material across these 4 critical categories: body and health, career and business, socialization and family, and personal development. You absolutely cannot ignore any of these. Think about it. If you build incredible wealth but you have terrible health, the factory breaks down and you literally won't be around to enjoy the profits. You need a constant flow of goals in all 4 of these sectors to maintain a truly balanced and fulfilling life.
Which brings us to this really powerful quote by Ben Stein. The ultimate takeaway from this whole ideation phase is clarity. You can kind of think of the universe like a naughty genie. It'll grant a vague wish, sure, but probably in a way that makes you totally miserable. A dream that you don't even know you have, or one you haven't clearly defined, is simply never going to get fulfilled. You must decide exactly what you want.
Section 3. Engineering achievable goals. Building the blueprint. Let's move to and see how this builds, because having 100 raw dreams is fantastic, but raw material is basically useless until it's processed. We need to engineer those desires into highly specific, measurable targets using 3 distinct timeframes. First, you create a long-term 1 to 10-year vision that gives you your North Star. But let's be honest, a year is way too far away to motivate you on a random Tuesday morning. So we break that massive vision down into 1 to 3 month process goals. That's the sweet spot. It creates a sense of urgency without being totally overwhelming.
And finally, we distill those process goals down into defined daily tasks. That is exactly how a monumental, life-changing vision becomes manageable daily execution.
Section 4. The Power of Visualization. Mental Mechanics. All right, with our blueprint drawn, we have to actually program the machinery. Did you know your brain processes something like 10 million bits of information a second? It's crazy. So here is the visualization magic formula to help filter all that data. The vividness of your mental picture, multiplied by how often you picture it, equals an achieved goal. When you vividly imagine a goal as if it's already been achieved, you create this massive conflict in your subconscious between your current reality and your imagination. The brain absolutely hates this conflict. It hates it. So it works overtime, acting like an internal GPS to generate ideas and spot resources to turn that mental image into physical reality.
Einstein summed up this mental mechanic beautifully. This isn't just fluffy wishful thinking. This is highly professional, data-backed cognitive tuning. By visually rehearsing your success right before you go to sleep and immediately upon waking up, you are literally commanding your subconscious to solve your problems 24 hours a day.
Section 5. Taking massive directed action. The assembly line in motion. A factory with perfect blueprints and flawlessly programmed machines produces absolutely nothing until somebody actually flips the power switch. It is time to execute. But as we all know, the biggest hurdle in execution is just starting. Just like a car uses way more gas to accelerate from a dead stop than it does to cruise on the highway, human beings face massive resistance when taking that very first step. But there's a brilliant psychological hack here called the Zeigarnik effect. Human psychology creates severe mental discomfort when a task is left unfinished. So, if you can just overcome the inertia of that very first step, your own psychology will actually compel you to keep moving. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of belief leading to action. For thousands of years, a sub-4-minute mile was considered physically impossible. Some doctors even claimed it was deadly. But Roger Bannister changed his belief, took massive directed action, and broke the record. And look what happened. Just 46 days later, someone else did it. And then between 1954 and 1959, 20 more runners followed suit. The physical limitations were a total illusion. The barrier was entirely mental. Once the belief changed, the action naturally followed.
Section 6. Embracing Failure and Persistence. Quality Assurance.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the number. The assembly line is running, but let's be real, inevitably things will break down. But we don't shut the factory down. We treat failures purely as data points for quality assurance and course correction. Consider the number 5,126. That is the exact number of failed prototypes James Dyson created before he finally engineered the dual cyclone bagless vacuum cleaner that made him a billionaire. Massive success isn't just about taking action. It is built directly and deliberately on top of massive failure. The reality is, the most successful people fail far more often than average people do.
So how do you endure over 5,000 failures? It all comes down to your fuel source. What we call push motivation relies on discipline, willpower, or the fear of punishment. It's exhausting. It burns out quickly, and it simply cannot sustain you through a 5,000 failure journey. The ultimate sustainable fuel for your factory is desire motivation. Having a burning passion, excitement, and a massive why that pulls you toward the goal naturally, without you needing to constantly force it.
If you want to see what that kind of desire and persistence looks like in reality, just look at the Brooklyn Bridge. When the chief engineer, John Roebling, tragically died, his son Washington took over, only to become completely paralyzed shortly after. For 13 years, Washington Roebling dictated the incredibly complex engineering instructions to his wife, using the only part of his body that could still move, a single finger. I mean, wow, that is what extreme determination looks like in the face of impossible circumstances.
So, the crucial point is that sheer willpower is just not enough. As Steve Jobs noted, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. To build the Brooklyn Bridge, or invent a Dyson vacuum, or engineer an exceptional life, you have to be fueled by a deep, authentic passion. Desire is the true driver of all great professional and personal work. When you genuinely love what you are building, the persistence required to overcome obstacles happens almost automatically.
Well, we've covered the complete blueprint, from defining your own happiness and generating those 100 dreams, to engineering your goals, utilizing visualization, taking massive action, and harnessing relentless desire. You literally have the tools now. You can no longer blame circumstances, the economy, or bad luck. So, the ultimate question I want to leave you with today is this. Are you going to continue making excuses, or are you going to take 100% responsibility right now, grab this blueprint, and start building your very own achievement factory today?